The way we're building AI systems today could be leading us toward a spiritually empty future. AI systems that manipulate symbols without meaning. In this video, I'm going to share a centuries-old story that reveals exactly what's missing in our approach to artificial intelligence and what it means for us. I'm Evan Goldstein. I'm a licensed professional engineer and a data scientist. I'm building AI capitalists to talk to the leaders and the thinkers, like you, about navigating this new world of thinking machines. You know what fascinates me? The way that we humans create meaning from patterns. I remember coming across this beautiful Hasidic story that completely changed how I think about artificial intelligence. You know, the Hasidic movement arose in Eastern Europe in the 18th century as a sort of reaction to a more rigid and rules-based spirituality that had arisen in Jewish circles at that time. So there's a tale about Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev. He was one of the great Hasidic masters of the 18th century. And one day, he noticed a simple shepherd praying with the most extraordinary devotion. He was so moved to tears watching this man pray, whose prayer seemed to reach the heavens directly, and that created a connection so powerful that it outshone even the most learned scholars around him. After the prayer, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak approached the man. "That was beautiful," he said, "but I'm curious. The words that you were saying didn't sound like the standard prayers. What text were you using?" And the shepherd looked embarrassed. He said, "Rabbi," he confessed, "I don't know how to read Hebrew. I never learned all of those fancy prayers in the books." And he pulled out a crumpled piece of paper with the Hebrew alphabet written on it. "All I know are these letters, so I recite them and I just say, 'God, here are all the letters. You know the prayers that I want to say better than I do. Please take these letters and arrange them into prayers that are in my heart.'" And Rabbi Levi Yitzchak was stunned. Here was a man who understood something profound about communication with the divine. The letters themselves were just patterns, data points, raw materials. But when infused with human intention and emotion and meaning, they became something more transcendent. Now, I can't stop thinking about this story when I work with AI systems. These incredible machines can recognize patterns, they can manipulate symbols, and they can generate content that looks remarkably like human communication. AI has all the letters, so to speak, but unlike that simple shepherd, lacks the meaning. Without the human intention, without the meaning that we bring to those patterns, something essential is lost. I'm Evan Goldstein. I'm a licensed professional engineer and a data scientist, and I'm building AI capitalists to talk to the leaders and the thinkers, like you, about navigating this new world of thinking machines. When we talk about artificial intelligence ethics today, most people look to Silicon Valley or to academic philosophy departments for guidance. But what if some of the most profound insights about balancing rational and emotional intelligence have been hiding in plain sight for centuries? So two competing Jewish philosophical movements that emerged in 18th century Eastern Europe have been wrestling with this exact question and the same problems that now challenge AI developers. How do we balance analytical reasoning with emotional understanding? Can systematic approaches to ethics be reconciled with intuitive moral sense? And what's the relationship between consciousness and knowledge and purpose? So the Hasidic movement burst onto the scene in the 18th century Eastern Europe through the charismatic leadership of Rabbi Yisrael ben Eliezer, who is known as the Baal Shem Tov, the master, the good name. Born around 1700 in what's now Ukraine, the Baal Shem Tov revolutionized Jewish practice because he emphasized emotional connection to God, and he found divine presence in everyday activities, and he made spirituality accessible to ordinary people, not just scholarly geniuses. Think of the Hasidic approach as like discovering that you can connect to the internet not just through complex manual coding, but through an intuitive touchscreen interface. The Baal Shem Tov basically created a more accessible user interface for spiritual connection. After his death in 1760, the movement spread rapidly through his disciples, especially through the Maggid of Metzrich, who developed a Hasidic philosophy into a sophisticated system. A Maggid is a teller, usually a storyteller, someone who tells things over. Now, different courts or dynasties formed around the charismatic leaders called tzaddikim, who were righteous people, and each had their own distinct approaches and customs. One influential branch was Chabad Lubavitch, founded by Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, who created a more intellectually rigorous form of Hasidic thought. But not everybody was excited by this revolution. The Mitnagdim, who literally means opponents, that term, they saw Hasidim as dangerous deviants from traditional Judaism. They were read by a man known as the Vilna Gaon, the genius of Vilna, or Vilnius, the city in Lithuania. and they fiercely defended the primacy of Torah study and strict adherence to religious law and intellectual analysis over emotional experience. The Vilna Gaon wasn't just a brilliant scholar, he was the 18th century equivalent of a supercomputer dedicated to systematic analysis of text and tradition. Hasidim emphasized the heart, Begnadim emphasized the mind. From this Begnadic tradition came the Musar movement in the 19th century. And Musar focuses on the systematic character refinement and ethical self-improvement. If Hasidism was about emotional connection to the divine, Musar was about methodological ethical development. It's almost like creating a programming language for human moral improvement. And Musar spread through key institutions like Slobodka and Novodrog yeshivas, which are religious academies, and developed sophisticated methods for character development. But here's what's interesting for us today. Both of these traditions were concerned with achieving the same goal, authentic connection to truth and meaning, but they took fundamentally different approaches to get there. So let's break down the key differences between these approaches because they map surprisingly well onto today's debates about artificial intelligence development. Hasidic philosophy emphasized joy and emotion and devoid, or this cleaving to God. It insisted that divine presence exists in all aspects of life, even in normal everyday activities. And these holy sparks in everyday activities can be elevated through mindful action. It's like recognizing that meaning exists not just in carefully curated data sets, but in everyday experiences and interaction. If modern AI learns from vast data sets, Hasidism suggests that true understanding requires learning from the full spectrum of human experience, not just filtered, clean information. Hasidism valued simplicity and sincerity over pure intellectualism. A heartfelt prayer from an uneducated person might be more significant than a scholar's sophisticated but emotionally disconnected analysis. And this is echoing modern debates about whether AI systems need emotional intelligence or just raw computational power to mimic those emotional moments. But what's really distinguished Hasidism was the role of the tzaddik, the righteous leader who served as an intermediary between ordinary people and the divine realm. Hasidim would travel huge distances to receive guidance and blessings and inspiration from their Rebbe. Community experience was central, and that included shared meals and stories and distinctive melodies that sort of induced spiritual states. By contrast, Begnadic and Musar philosophy placed primacy on value on Torah study and on intellectual analysis. They maintained the most direct path to truth was straight through rigorous textual study, through logical reasoning and strict adherence to Jewish religious law and practice. Musar added a unique focus on character refinement, developed methods for identifying negative character traits and systematically working to overcome them. I guess you could say the difference between the two in terms of character refinement was like Hasidim would be like having Richard Simmons listen to you pour your heart out, and Musar would be more like your Marine Corps drill instructor, trying to grind you down and make you into something better. So the Musar movements included regular self-examination, journaling about ethical progress, and specific exercises designed to strengthen core moral character. For example, someone working on patients might deliberately seek out situations that test this quality and then reflect on their reactions. They would actually put themselves into these situations. Others might focus on generosity by giving charity even when they don't feel emotionally moved to do so, and they would train themselves to act ethically regardless of their emotional state. Now, we could take this approach to ethical AI systems. Should they operate on explicit ethical rules like Musar practices, or should they develop an ethical intuition through exposure to human values, which would be more akin to the Hasidic approach? Let's imagine how AI development might look through a Hasidic perspective. From this perspective, technology itself contains divine sparks that can be elevated through proper use. The goal wouldn't be just to create efficient systems, but to develop AI that enhances human joy and meaning and connection. A Hasidic approach would emphasize emotional intelligence in AI design, the ability to recognize and to respond appropriately to human feelings, not just to process logical statements. It would prioritize systems that strengthen community bonds instead of isolating individuals, as we see it now. If a Hasidic master were consulting an AI on ethics, they might ask, does this technology help people find more meaning and joy in their lives? Does it strengthen authentic human and divine connections? Does it make the world more whole? This perspective would be concerned about AI replacing authentic human divine connections. Technology should serve as a tool for enhancing spiritual experience, not as a substitute for it. Systems that would promise spiritual or emotional fulfillment without human effort or community engagement would be viewed suspiciously, like offering the fruits of meditation without the practice itself. Think about these like AI therapists, for example. But how might AI development look through a Mi'knagdic or a Musar lens? Now, this approach would emphasize rational frameworks for AI ethics and clear boundaries. It would insist on human intellectual oversight and responsibility for AI system. Where a Hasidic approach might elevate and might evaluate AI based on its emotional impact, a Mi'knagdic approach would ask, does the system conform to the established ethical principles? Does it operate according to transparent logical rules? Can its decisions be explained or justified? The Musar tradition would offer unique insights about using AI as a tool for ethical growth. Imagine AI systems designed to help users identify and improve specific character traits, technological implementation of traditional Musar practices. A Musar-inspired approach would involve identification and the correction of AI biases, much like how Musar practitioners systematically work on their own character flaws. The Musar concept that knowledge alone doesn't guarantee ethical behavior would suggest that AI systems need more than just information. They need carefully designed frameworks for translating principles into action. Let's look at how these philosophical perspectives might apply to a specific AI technology. So take large language models like the ones that are powering chatbots now. A Hasidic perspective might emphasize these systems' ability to engage in natural, flowing conversation, creates genuine human connection, and it would value models that can respond to emotional cues and provide comfort or joy. A Mi'knagdic perspective would focus more on these models' capacity for logical reasoning and factual accuracy, and for clear explanation of their outputs. It would prioritize transparency and consistent adherence to ethical guidelines. When it comes to decision-making algorithms in areas like healthcare or criminal justice, a Hasidic approach might emphasize the importance of human oversight to catch cases where individual circumstances require compassionate exceptions to general rules. It would be skeptical of fully automated decisions in domains requiring moral judgment. A Musar perspective might focus on systematically identifying and correcting biases in these algorithms, a lot like how Musar practitioners work methodically on their own character flaws, and it would insist on regular ethical audits and continuous improvement. For emotional and social robots, Hasidic insights about authentic connection could help designers avoid creating systems that offer a shallow simulation of companionship. Real connection requires vulnerability and growth, not just mimicry of human behavior. The Gnostic approach would establish clear boundaries about the proper role of these robots as tools for specific purposes, not as replacements for human relationships. Despite their historical disagreements, these traditions share important common ground that's relevant to AI ethics. Both emphasize human dignity and divine purpose. Both of them recognize the need for ethical boundaries, and both see technology as a means to a higher ends, not the end in and of itself. Their insights complement each other in ways that could inform a more balanced approach to AI. In a world racing toward increasingly powerful AI, these centuries-old philosophical traditions could give us some different perspective. They remind us to ask not just can we build it, but should we build it? And how will it affect human dignity and community and purpose?